today I just wanted to talk about a new way of living, a new way of life, a new way of doing things. I have been presented with that in my own personal life at this hour. I adopted a baby pug. Uh, she is around 11, 12 weeks when we adopted her, and my old way of living, like sleeping through the night, has drastically changed. So I don't sleep through the night. My morning routine is way off. And due to the circumstances of this adoption, I have a little bit of a new way of living. It's not what I would sign up for. It's not my ideal. It's mildly inconvenient. I'm starting to feel like I got bags and twitch under my eyes because I'm not sleeping properly. But there's a new addition to our family, and I would not trade her for the world as of yet, as of today. And so I've had this conversation a few times this week about this new way of living, this new introduction to a lifestyle. And I was reflecting this morning on preparing this of my old style of living, my old way of living. I went to work. Uh, I worked, 9 to 5. I worked construction, and I go to bed late and I wake up late, and I don't drink coffee back then. I would grab something to eat, like just bring it with me in the car. I would pack like a lunch kind of, but then half the time I wouldn't because I'm too rushed to get out the door to get to the job site. I said 9 to 5, but I worked usually at 7 to 3 p.m. And I'm always in like a rush. I'm not in a calm state. I'm just trying to get out the door, get to work. When I'm at work, I'm just trying to figure out what I got to do for the rest of the day, and I'm in this perpetual cycle of kind of like kind of a resentment of the past and where how my life has been, and then like this fear of the future of what's going to happen. Life's not really good enough the way it is, and I'm in this tense state all the time. This was my own way of living. It's almost like the self-preservation of me and my family. And that's all I cared about. And then I threw in, cocaine and alcohol on top of all that. And so I would say my old way of living was self-preservation. And basically it looked like I was just chugging life at all levels. And so I wanted to really talk about the new way of life outlined by the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. If you're somebody in addiction recovery, that could be codependency or food or pornography or whatever it is, a debilitating way of life that is really going to at some point take away your life. It could be your physical, spiritual, emotional life. It's actually going to actually destroy that. It's going to erode all the relationships around you. That way of living, the Big Book actually introduces us into a way of life, a new way of living. And so part of that starts with a relationship with God. Many of us have had a relationship with God or have a belief in God, but we actually don't have the power of God inside of us. So the 12 steps was formulated to actually move into a relationship with God that's going to solve these problems internally. So one of the stories that I like to refer to, his name is Fred. If you have a Big Book, it's on page 39. So Fred is a partner in a well-known accounting firm. He's kind of a big deal. He has income is good. He has a fine home. He's happily married and the father of promising children of college age. I don't know. What are promising children? Promising that they're going to have, they're going to have a marriage and professional jobs, and they're going to make really good money, get fine houses, and be part of an established society. They're going to be big deals. I guess that's what promising children of college age are. He has so attractive a personality that he makes friends with everyone. If ever there was a successful businessman, it is Fred. To all appearance, he is stable, well-balanced individual. Yet, the word yet he is alcoholic. And so the friends of the early Alcoholics Anonymous guys went to meet with him. And so what does it mean to be alcoholic? Well, just in the simple terms of there's a physical abnormality and a mental abnormality. And you could put this framework in any addiction. So number one is a physical abnormality that most people don't have. And so the abnormality is is the basics of it is it produces a craving for more that I can't control. So somebody like that's allergic to peanuts, they have an abnormality that blows them up and have anaphylactic shock. They can't do anything about it. The abnormality of addiction is something that produces a craving for more. So it's okay to drink a beer or two, but when I get thirstier, for me, I get thirstier and thirstier, and by beer 5, I'm even more thirsty, and by beer 8, I'm more thirsty. I'm starting to change what I was going to do at night, like go to bed at a certain time, wake up at a certain time. I make excuses, but it's the physical abnormality manifesting, and it didn't start that way, but over the course of my addiction life, it does progress. So where I had a bit of control before or lots of control, over the course of time, I lose control. Like lots of allergies. People can have a couple bee bites, stings, and then when they hit 16, they get stung by a bee and it's life-threatening. So this is an abnormality that actually gets worse over the course of time. And that's kind of helps with that delusional thinking as well, that I actually do control it. So that could be adrenaline, cortisol inside of you. The fight or flight response is just, I need more adrenaline. I need more excitement, all of that stuff. I need more alcohol. I need more drugs. Somebody that is online all the time and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and having all the little brain hits. It could be pornography. It could be so many things that you're having an abnormal response on the inside where you actually can't let it go. So when they say alcoholic, that's the physical abnormality, and then there's the mental part. So if the mental part never was there, if the mental part didn't exist, the physical wouldn't even matter. So if I never had a mental obsession to drink, that it would solve my problems, that it will be different this time. Well, it's not that bad. And whatever it is, overeating, whatever, pornography, whatever that is, you've had serious enough consequences, and you say, I will never do that again. And 2 weeks later, you're thinking that it actually wasn't that bad, and this time it will be different. So that's the mental part that I believe only God can remove. And that's why we have this framework of actually getting into this relationship for God to solve that problem. Almost kind of like getting into the furnace for God to remove that part of you, to purify you. And then the physical craving never comes back. I get people ask me that all the time, like, do you think you could have a beer or two ever again? And I said, I don't know, but I don't ever want to play with it because of the horror show that me not being able to control my alcohol ever did. So I would never even test the theory. So I believe that the physical may never leave me. And so that means I could never safely drink alcoholic beverages ever again. So that's what they're talking about. That's what caused Fred to have this part of his life out of control. And so yet he is alcoholic. So on the outside, he presents really well. He has beautiful children, a fine place, a great job, all of that stuff. He is well loved. And then they talk about the people that brought him the message talk about a new way of living. They outlined the spiritual solution, the spiritual answer. And so they presented him with the outline of the 12 steps that hundreds of them have followed successfully. And so it was a drastic solution to their problem because most of these guys never really believed in God. Maybe they were nominal church people and such. And so over the courses of relapses and hospital visits, he said he was ready to undertake this drastic measure of having a relationship with God and then moving into a new way of living. And I think some of us stop there. We're willing to do whatever it takes to have this relationship with God, to receive his grace, to have this, this spiritual experience, but we never go into the new way of living. And I believe that's partly due to resting on our laurels. Like, it's like the 400-pound life, getting to that point where my life is a little bit more manageable. I'm 250 pounds. And I'm like, I did it. And if I don't adapt to a new way of living, I'm going to quickly gain and get right back up to 400 pounds. So these half measures of our program really cause futility. And the more we get caught in this cycle, I think the more hopeless people get and go, this doesn't work for me. But I've actually never applied the different way of living. And so this is what he says. He bought into it hook, line, and sinker. And he says, my old manner of life was by no means a bad one, but I would not exchange its best moments for the worst I have now. I would not go back even if I could. And I know what he's talking about. It's not just like a life of prayer meditation. It's like actually focusing on a whole new way of living, which I'm going to explain in a bit. And then it has a disclaimer. So he goes, I wouldn't trade my old way. Like, my old way was great. Like, the kids were in hockey. I was a partner. All of this stuff. And so I'm going to explain what the new way of living was. Like, he actually changed how he lived. And then it says, once more, just wait, once more. The alcoholic at certain times has no effective mental defense against the first drink, and fill in the blank for you. The first sign of lust, the first overthinking, the first adrenaline hit, that kind of thing. Except in a few rare cases, neither he nor any other human being can provide such a defense. His defense must come from a higher power. It must come from God. So we don't build a defense. We build a relationship. And so many of us want to get into this. We have relief. We do a workshop. We go through Life Lab. We have this experience. We're like, oh my goodness, I saw where fear was running the show. I didn't even know this stuff was in here. And I gave it to God and I had this relief. And I was like, yeah. And then I'm going to put these things in my life to build a defense so that I'll never go back. It's saying that it's not going to work. At some point, you're going to have a blow up again, and enough fear is going to create and ignite a mental obsession that's going to bring you back to the old addiction, because you actually never changed the way you were living. So don't build defenses, build a relationship. And so that can look different in all of our lives. In certain lives, yes, you don't go into the casino for lunch if you have a gambling problem. I don't go shopping at liquor stores. I don't typically like to go eat at pubs, probably because they have not great food. But at the same time, I don't really like to go and support those establishments. So those are like maybe a defense, but those are just things that I have boundaries with. But it's more about building the relationship. A few different pages in the big book, they talk about a revolutionary change in the way of my living. So ask yourself, do I have a whole new way of living life? What I do with my time, my money, my energy, my thinking, all of the principles and values. Have I had a drastic change in the way I live? A revolutionary change. They talk about the family thereafter, because when dad comes home, one of my hardest spots was when I came home. There was a good year where me and my wife were separated and or on the verge of being separated, and then finally separated, and her moving out because I was too dysfunctional to move out. And I was going on 5, 3, 10-day benders, and I was so dysfunctional. And so I go to a treatment center for 6 months, and I come back to the house where she is and the kids and the responsibility. It was so hard to enter into that. And so there's a whole letter to the wives of and the children of the alcoholic. And it says, Dad, be patient with Dad because he has a whole new way of living. It's very different. And on page 84, it says, commenced a new way of living. As well as the first forward of the first edition, it says, this way of living has its advantages for everyone. So it's actually implementing, not just getting into a relationship with God that's going to, take away this mental obsession and all of that stuff and kind of get me on the straight and narrow. It's not just like a linear workshop where I just keep climbing. It's actually entering into this circle, which I call the Garden of Eden, the temple. We are the temple of God. And this is where I want everybody to start saying the set aside prayer, because this can be very hard to hear, because it's almost limiting. It's almost like, well, I'm not a baby anymore. I'm a big kid. I got my life back on track. I can get the jobs and the things that I was involved in and the sports my kids were and all this stuff. Like I just get to be freer now. I just don't have this monkey on my back anymore. So this is where I have to say this set aside prayer and really include God of what this looks like. So in Alcoholics Anonymous, they have the circle and they have this triangle. And this is the outline of the new way of living, because the new way of living is actually being a priest in the temple. So how do I be a priest in this temple? Well, we have the three sides of the triangle: unity, service, and recovery. And so this is what the invitation is, to start having a relationship with God, to have the little embers of the Spirit of God inside of me, to burn away the stuff that needs to be burnt away. And then I get to live in there. You think of Samuel as he was dedicated to the temple of God. He was trained, he had a mentor, he lived a very different lifestyle than any other kid. He lived in a temple. And that's what our invitation is. And it seems, at the end of the day, I could be like, what? Am I brainwashed? At the end of the day, I go, I don't have another choice because of the horrific horror show my life was. Lots of you probably have a lot of other options. For me, I didn't have another choice. So I choose to look at myself as a disabled person for the rest of my life. I have to live differently than normal people, whatever the normal people are. And that's kind of the delusion itself. Like, I just want to be like a normal person. I don't want to have to do all this stuff all the time. And I don't just mean have this relationship with God. That's a big part of it. And that's the bottom of the triangle. It's called your personal recovery. That's all about your mind. That's all about the growth and the subduing of our mental capacities. Paul says, I do the things that I don't want to do and don't do the things that I should be doing, all of that stuff. This is my own personal recovery. So what does that look like? I'm involved in a small group of men. On Friday mornings, I meet with men as a group, and we're all over the place on the mat. So we meet on Zoom, and we share and we talk about our lives and we give feedback. You could do that in a confessional life group, as we have an outline where you're actually like meeting with people and you're just talking, a small group, like 3 people, and you're just talking about, where am I having difficulties? What's really hard? What's looking good right now? What's lacking in my life? And so that's how I grow spiritually, connected to the vine, through prayer and meditation on a daily morning basis, getting direction, seeking God's face and direction for the day and inspiration, and going through like a step 10 and 11. You can look into that a little bit more, ask questions. So that's the recovery part. That's the mind part, where I actually overcome the mind through this relationship with God. And then we have unity, and we call that fellowship. So that's my physical body. So part of my life revolves around, I would say, a 12-step fellowship. So somebody with, people with, a similar problem with a solution that we call God, and we're living together. We're part of a group conscience. It's where I could invite other people too. I'm meeting these people over here. I talked to a person in the grocery store. They're struggling with what I struggled with, or with something else that is addiction in their life, and I can invite them. My group is Thursday at 7:30, called the Upper Room. And so I can invite people there. But at the same time, I am part of a group conscience. And so that is, we meet once a month, and I get to have say. There's nobody that's the boss. The boss is God. And we hear God together, and we're going to be launching new meetings. And so that didn't come out of like one person's vision. It's coming out of our group conscience to have a meeting downtown, to have a meeting in the East End, that kind of stuff. So I get to be a part of that. I'm not the boss of it. But but this is a part of my life, and this is the part of a new way of living, that I have my physical body in a group of people that I'm just a part of, but I can invite other people into. We can grow that. And then I have the other side of service, and this is the spiritual growth in my life. This is what I get to do for free. And if you've ever worked with people in the 12 steps, you're going to get a lot of them that, relapse and that kind of stuff, or cause chaos. I remember sponsors saying, you're not supposed to get into a relationship, an intimate relationship within a year of your recovery. And I'm like, well, I don't see that in our recovery literature, but I understand why the sponsor's saying that, because the sponsors knows that it's going to be a lot of drama for his life, because you're going to complain, this is going to happen, she's going to do that. Like, it's just a lot of headache. It's a lot of distraction, but it can actually help people out. It can help refine you. But we help a lot of people for free. We're sitting there. We're guiding them through the work. We put on little workshops. You might be working with 5, 10 people. Maybe you're not at the place where you can bring people through the 12 steps or through Life Lab. And maybe you don't have that activated in your life to that you're not sober or whatever, but this needs to be part of my life, that I'm doing this at a capacity that it does take up time. Right now, I'm probably working with 8 people. Going through the steps. It gets overwhelming when I'm doing inventory with them. And so I meet people on the phone, or I meet them on Zoom, or meet them in person. But I think the spiritual concept on a daily basis is, how can I be helpful? And so I'm involved in peer-to-peer support groups. We do street outreach. These are things that you can get involved in. And what I'm saying is, give everything to the inner circle, the triangle. You're not giving yourself over to the church, or to this meeting, or to this fellowship, or to your work. Like, what I'm giving my 100% to is this relationship with God in this outlined new way of living. So I think that's important, because I meet with guys, that I haven't met with in about 6 months or 8 months, and they're still doing this part of the recovery, or they're doing inventory, or they didn't commit to the full 12 steps. They didn't commit to the full outline of the workshop, and they really haven't started a new way of living. So the first part is getting led into the 12, into the relationship with God through the different workshops, or the 12 steps, and then really adapting yourself to a new way of living, and then inviting people into that as well. So that's the new way of living, kind of like the introductory to it, like the encouragement to it, to incorporate this way of living into your life. You might have to have your kids not play high levels of hockey. You might have to quit certain clubs and activities that you were once a part of. But this is a new way of living. And so adapting that over the course of time, over the years, will give you like a real stability in the temple, because we are the priests. And that's the good news, that Jesus died, the veil was torn, and we get to be the holiest of holies in the presence of God on the inside of us. So this is the outline. I didn't make it up. This is coming from the early founders of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's an invitation into a new way of living.